this in any way, please do email me. I or parents. I'm happy to help you one-on-one, freshmen. I know that you probably haven't written a paper quite like this before. Juniors and senior, or well, juniors, no senior. You've done this before, so this should be a little bit easier. And sophomores, you're somewhere in between. So I really want to help you with this, and I want you to think about this as a very straightforward process. I'm giving you a structure to follow, like I do with all of your speeches, but this one even a little more. So today I'm going to go over, show you the outline template that I'm giving you, and then what I expect with each of the outlines. Okay. So again, please contact me if you need help. Your outline is going to consist of a hook at the start, something that gets your audience interested in what's happening. Why should they stop what they're doing and pay attention to you? Strong hooks also give you a lot of confidence because you know you're starting out strong. This is not the first place to start with your writing, but they are important. Then you are going to have in your speech, because it's only 1.5 minutes long to 2 minutes, a brief introduction and a brief conclusion, and then in the middle, 3 well-developed arguments. Okay, those are your 3 ways to change people's minds, right? A logical argument, a personal argument, and an emotional argument. Okay, and I want you to have all 3, and I want you to think of those flexibly. Your emotional argument could include a lot of information gathered from the internet, okay, from the sources that I've given you. A story about somebody dying could have a lot of information. It doesn't necessarily have to be a happy or sad story from your life. It can also be hypothetical, the emotional argument. You could say, imagine if, think through this situation, okay? If you took some data from Johns Hopkins University about the deaths in New York or the recovery in New York, that could be part of your emotional argument. You're just going to have to write creatively to just try to describe the emotional environment that people are in, okay? So I really want you to think about this flexibly. Okay, so the next thing is, and I said this in the introduction, that writing is not just sitting down and starting to write. Writing is organizing the information first. That's what the outline is for. And then phrasing the information. That's what we normally think of as writing the first draft. Okay? Now, writing the first draft becomes incredibly complicated when we haven't done the organization. You just start writing and you just kind of get organized or disorganized, and then you don't know where to start. So I really want you to take time to think through, what could I talk about? What are some good ideas? What are some ideas to and think through the outline before you start thinking of exactly what you're going to say. Okay, I'm going to show you an example of the outline that you're going to fill in, and of how I filled it out for my paper if I was going to write it. Okay, please make sure you are playing to your strengths, your background, and your personal interests. Okay, if you're an athlete and your emotional appeal is all about how you don't get to play you want to, Alondra, okay, then your emotional appeal is about you're working and to be around all these people so stressed. Emotional appeal is about how this has impacted your family. All those things are totally fair. What's going to be hard is if you decide that your life is not something that you can talk about to the audience, or your personal experience isn't valid. To be persuasive speakers, we really need to claim the fact that we're an expert in our own life, which means that, and our lives are a lot like other people, and the way we think is a lot like other people. If you can embrace that, it will help a lot. Okay, so please play to your personal strengths, your background, and your personal interests. Okay. Okay. If you have questions and concerns, do contact me. All right. I'm going to take out that heading and I'm going to share my screen. And this is the new assignment in the persuasive speaking unit. People are making good progress with the quiz here down below, and the appeals. But let me show you the new stuff that's right up here at the top. Okay. My apologies. I have an extra outline here at the top. But if I go and I view the assignment, oh, I've still got to edit it. This is the background that you see when I do it. But there are two important things here for you to see, okay? First is this is an outline the way you would normally see it. Open. Here we go. This is the outline the way you would normally see it if it was a worksheet that we did in class, okay? And you could, excuse me, if you wanted to print this and fill it out by hand and then share it with me, that's fine. But this is basically a normal structure of an outline that you would, worksheet that you would get in class. A space to list the information that you would use for your hook, your clearly stated position. You can use this sentence frame or not. We must blank because blank is a really simple way to have an introduction. And then your appeals, right? You can reorder your appeals in whatever way you want, but make sure that you do have one logical, one personal, and one emotional, okay? Now, and then it goes through the three appeals. You're listing facts, and you're gonna see on my example that one of my facts is the number of new cases in Multnomah County yesterday. That's all I wrote was this many people got sick yesterday. That's it, okay? So your facts do not need to be a complete sentence about the fact. They could just be the fact itself. It could be a statistic, okay? And we're going to talk about how we're going to cite that in just a few minutes. But then I go through, I have my second and third appeal, okay? And then the conclusion, all right? Now, the conclusion should always restate the thesis, just like in our impromptu speeches, or the argument, thesis, argument, same thing. And then at the end, I want you to use an if-then statement, okay? And this is an example. I have an if-then statement in my example, but this is just a more general one. If people made more selfless choices, specifically intended to help others, then tragedies in our history may not have had such a negative impact on our nation's history, okay? An if-then statement implies a choice to the audience, that they can take action on this issue, and they're highly related to people taking action. So this is one that you could print and fill out, but keep watching. I also created a fillable one. Now, this is the one that you can actually turn into me, and it's set up so that you get a personal one that you get to fill out and it doesn't affect anybody else. So here, these little dashes are just the place where lines would go, okay? Scrolling down, it's going slowly, but it's set up in the exact same way. One small change is that I'm saying, just delete the one you're not doing, okay? Place for your topic sentence. What is this paragraph about? Okay, so this one is what you can actually fill out when you do this form, okay? One note could be is that you can just take notes on here as you're doing the research, have it open in a second window, and then take notes on here. And then for the draft you turn into me, cut out the stuff that you don't like, okay? So this is the fillable form. And now what I want to do is show you my example and talk through my example of my persuasive speech. Okay, so in my outline, you're not going to see full sentences most of the time, okay? I'm just getting the information out, okay? So my introduction, I'm going to describe an empty school and how sad that is, and describe my empathy for students struggling, school online, and then I'm going to pose a hypothetical question, which is people's attention, and that is, should schools stay closed in the fall? I'm clearly stating my position here. We must open schools to whatever degree safely possible. Ooh. Because to open too early poses significant health risks, and the current format of school format doesn't serve kids best, okay? I think I'm gonna give that a rewrite before you guys see this, but in the video, that's where it is. What I don't like is the second half isn't smoothly worded. And I could set up a parallel structure that would be nice. To stay closed too long doesn't serve kids best, and to open too quickly poses significant health risks to the public. So that's how I might reorder that. You'll see when I do that in a minute. So appeal number one, I want you to name the appeal. And the first one is that I'm an expert. I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher forever. Okay. And so that's a personal appeal. I'm appealing to myself as an expert. You may feel like this is a difficult appeal because you're like, I don't know if I'm an expert in a lot of things. What you can do is tell us about what you have learned and what you have seen. And if you tell us information that you've learned or your personal experience, you are still claiming to be an expert, okay? Or you can refer to somebody else that you've read, right? I'm an expert because I learned this thing that somebody else wrote about. I have a topic sentence in each paragraph that I do have to write out the way it will appear. As a teacher and a parent, I'm seeing students struggle during the pandemic, and I know what's good for kids, okay? So my first fact is I've spent 20 or more years working with elementary school students to college students. I've taught in multiple formats and multiple subjects, and this is an observation. Observations are fine. As a fact, let me back up. Facts are listed here, and they could be statistics that you've learned online. They can be facts that you've gotten. They can also be narrative explanations and descriptions that fit, okay? So what I'm doing, because I'm appealing to myself as the expert, I'm sharing information here that I have observed, okay? The normal structures that school provides are gone, and this is disruptive to learning and to family life, okay? Now I have to develop that later, but I can appeal to my own knowledge in this type of appeal. Appeal number two, kids and families are struggling. This is an emotional appeal. Now, in an emotional appeal, I want to make the audience feel some way, okay? I want them to feel sympathy. I want them to feel sad. I want them to feel angry. I want them to feel hopeful, right? Which means the writing is going to change, okay? So what I list is, I don't just know this as a professional, I'm seeing it firsthand, okay? That's my topic sentence, and then my descriptions. I'm going to talk about both my kids. Molly is 15 and Theo is 11. And I'm going to talk about what they have said they're missing, right? And I could say that I see that in my students, fact number two. And then I'm going to paint a picture of my nephew who's suffering from depression, like a lot of kids. And I'm going to describe some interactions I've had with him, okay, that are make him very sad, okay? Truth be told, this is an example outline. My nephew isn't actually depressed. I've seen that in some of my students, but I can't really talk about their experience to a whole class. So appeal number 3. Okay, let me go back really. Appeal number 2. So my goal here is to make people empathize with students. Okay, so I'm giving examples to help them emphasize. This could be a story about one person. Okay, I could talk about my brother's father-in-law, who's a really great guy, who was in the hospital for 3 weeks with COVID and almost died. That's fair. Appeal 3, a logical one. I can order these as much as I want. Okay, and my thought process with this argument was that I need to paint the picture of why we have to go back to school first. That's why I put the personal appeal and the emotional appeal before the logical appeal, because I think everybody wants to go back to school, but we really have to be cautious. So I put appeal 3 in the third position, which we could call the but position. Okay. In this one, and this is going to be the most straightforward because I did this from the research. Real risks to the health of our community still exist, and we must use extreme caution in opening schools. So now you have to believe that we need to use real caution. According to Johns Hopkins University, 41 cases yesterday in Multnomah County. So this is how I want you to do citations. I don't have enough time in the next week, or we don't have enough time to learn proper citation. But because we're using common sources, I just want you to reference it in the language of the text. You could say, according to Johns Hopkins University, okay? Or the CDC says, or the CDC reported that. Put the name of the source in the text of the sentence. Okay. It also states that a fatality rate of 3.67% means that in Multnomah County, and it means that 1 to 2 people were diagnosed yesterday may die, right? So these facts don't stand alone. I have to add some other sentences to put them into context, but they do work. Okay. So again, we're just trying to organize our information. Now I move on to another source. So I'm saying Andy about reopening schools. I should write that about schools. We must wait for government officials to give direction first. Now that also doesn't isn't a standalone fact. I have to put that in context. But you see that if you have good information, you can develop your paragraphs relatively quickly. So make sure you take time to look for that good information. And then my conclusion, I literally cut and paste. In conclusion, we must reopen schools to whatever degree possible because to reopen too early poses significant health risks, and the current format doesn't serve kids best. Okay, again, I'm going to rewrite that because I don't love it. And then I go to an if-then statement, and this is my if-then statement. If we can thread the needle between safety and real concerns about student and family needs, we can assist the community through this pandemic. To do otherwise, okay, that's it. Really straightforward introduction and conclusion. Where you can get more creative is in your 3 appeals in the middle. Okay, so have fun with the outline. Choose an issue that you feel like is manageable and helpful. I'm going to go back to my StreamYard tab to conclude. And think through what you feel like is manageable for you, okay? If you, and also I want you to feel the freedom to talk about what you want to talk about. This is a wide-reaching issue. And so please feel free that kind of anything's game that's school appropriate, okay? So let's talk, and if you need help brainstorming ideas, I'd be happy to do that. That's sort of the goal on Monday's class. If we do brainstorming on Monday, we may be a tiny bit behind, but if you email me, I'll get back to you with brainstormed ideas, or we could set set up an appointment to work together. Okay, so that was your final persuasive speaking final overview. And let me know if you have any questions or need help.